Now would be a good time to start working on our actor component that is going to be actually handling our abilities. So what you can think of in this case is you can see the actor component as sort of, I don't know where I actually heard this the first time I heard it, but it was sort of like really nicely put. It went something along the lines of, let's assume that your character is a Jedi, and your character, he's just the character, but which skills that are available to him is something that's available in his Jedi Codex. And this actor component that we're going to be creating is going to be this Jedi Codex, this ability pool, this container of what this character can do, basically. So if you were to have 5 different Jedis, you could give them 5 different codex and they would have different abilities, for example. And that is sort of the approach that we will be going with this. So let's just start creating the blueprint components. We go to blueprint class and create an actor component. We call it bpc underscore ability pool. So this will be where all our abilities are. And then we create a few things here. We can start with, let's go with a variable that we're going to need at some point here. We'll call this available abilities, and we'll make this of the type bp ability and an object actor reference. And we want to make this an array because we're going to have multiple abilities. In addition to that, let's start where this functionality will start. So we'll create a function and we'll call this initialize all abilities. So this is the first thing that we're going to be calling for this actor component to make sure that it gets all its abilities. And now we're going to be creating an array of actors. I wonder, we won't be doing this, but I want to have it as a specific type. I'm unsure if I can just choose this. Let's do something a little bit roundabout. There might be a better way of doing this, but let's just do this for now. So we'll just create a new variable. It needs to be an array, but we need to change it from bp ability object reference to class reference. Like so. Okay, I chose ability child, that's wrong. Ability class reference. Now by dragging it in here, we can do something like loop on it, and then we would be looping on this. But what we want to do is actually create an array for this to loop on. So now we can remove this variable because we don't need it anymore. If you know a better way of doing this, feel free to mention it in the comments down below. But basically, this is going to be our array. So we're going to be having like 3 different abilities here. And we're going to be looping on all of them and initializing them. So the very first thing that we're going to be needing is a function to add each of these abilities to us. So we're going to be making a function called add ability by class, and it's going to have an input of type bp ability class reference, and we can call this ability, or ability class might be a better descriptive name, like so. And then we can go back, and then we're just going to be dragging out this new function we created, and we're going to hook up the array element into the ability class. So that's the first functionality. So we're basically just going to be working through all of these abilities that we have, and we're going to be adding them, and after that, when we're done, we're just going to be returning our available abilities. And let's go and do this first, actually. So actually, before we do that, this I'm using right now here will be sort of hard-coded-ish. You can go into it and like change this, but it would be the same for all the different ones. If you wanted to have a more dynamic way of doing it, you could plug in an array, so you have an array that's sent in here. So those are the abilities that you add, so you have something dynamic per character. And then you can have this just as a backup. If nothing is being sent in here in an array, then you can have this as a backup to use these abilities. But that's up to you if you want to change this later on. Let's go through what the functionality that we need in our add ability by class. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to get our owner, and we're going to be casting it to a pawn, because anything that we can control will be a pawn, like so. And then we're going to take this class and we're going to spawn an actor from class. I'm going to create a little reroute over there, another reroute over here. So if we're able to cast it, so we have a proper owner, then we're going to spawn this actor. And the instigator over here is going to be that pawn. Now we can't spawn just like this, it will give us an error if we try. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do at all. So if we try to compile, it's going to say we don't have a spawn transform, and that's just because it doesn't allow it to have it like this. So if we split the struct pin, then we'll get it separate as a transform and a transform rotation and transform scale. And like this, it actually has values, so it's going to be accepting this. From here, we are going to be taking this ability, and we know that this is an ability, but this return here is actually it says ability object, so that's fine, I guess. We are going to bind cooldown end on this one. So we spawn an actor, and then we make sure that if it sends a cooldown end message to us, we take care of it. And let's also do this and create a bind on cooldown start, or begin, we have apparently called it here. So, because we want to handle both of these different event dispatchers later on. So let's create let's create some events for this. So let's drag off this cooldown end, and we click up here and we say create event, and we say create a matching function. Now it will create a generic name for us here, which will have the signature that matches that event, which is an ability. And we will just be renaming this one any ability cooldown end. Like so. And then we don't have one for begin, so we're just going to be, let's put that over there. Doing the same over here. We're going to create an event for the event dispatcher, create a matching function. I'm going to be renaming this to any ability cooldown start. Now the reason I'm calling them any ability cooldown here is because we are creating, this is being called by the loop, like here. For each ability we're calling the add ability by class, and we're going through that and creating an actor. So we're creating a bind for each separate ability that we create. So we're gonna have the same event trigger for all the different abilities, but the event itself will be getting an ability reference into it, so it knows which ability is actually being handled at that point. And then we compile. After that, we are going to be taking this variable that we created before, and we're going to type in add, and we're just going to be adding our ability that we have just spawned into there, so we have that reference available to us. So, and then we're done here, and we can, yes, we can return. So this function is done, like so. So we keep building here, and then eventually when we come out from having looped over here, then we have this completed, and we want to return. However, we want to also bring in the available abilities that we built up over here. So we will be adding an output over here for ability object references of an array type. And we can call this as the variable. So we call it available abilities. Available abilities. That looks correct. Like so. And then we just jack it in like so. So that's all of this functionality done. So let's go and look at our actual events here, what we're going to be doing with them. So you can navigate with them over here. You can double click over here on these event markers that we have created. So if we are going to start with the ability cooldown end, for example, it's going to be very simple. This is the actual component. So what's going to happen is the ability itself is going to be calling its event dispatcher, which is called cooldown end. And then we react with this event when that happens. And here we are going to be calling or throwing out our own event dispatchers for anyone who wants to listen to that. So we will be creating an event dispatch called ability cooldown end. Like so. And we'll be creating a ability cooldown start. Like so. And these, just like all the other ones, will have a reference of one ability object reference, like so. And we'll do that on the start as well. Like so. Compile and save, and then we go back to where we're actually using that. So the cooldown end over here. Now we can take the cooldown end over here and we can say call it. And then we'll shoot that there, and that's actually all we're going to be doing here. We're just going to be saying, well, we found this notification, now we send our notification basically. And we're going to do the same thing for the ability cooldown start. So we call that one. So we're basically doing a chain of events going up in the hierarchy while with this approach. Like so. So now we have all of the handling of the different cooldown events and the general initialization available. Now we need to allow an entrance from the actor to use an ability. So we'll create a function. We'll call this use ability. So this will be, did I do something wrong? Use ability, like so. And this will be our entry points basically from the outside world. Now to make sure that this works, we need to make sure that we have our, yeah, we do have that. Okay, so that's fine for now. Let's go up to our blueprint component again. So what we want to do here is we want to get our owner again, and we want to from this owner we want to get its current target, which we created an interface for earlier. Now we don't actually care what type of owner this is really. We just want to get it by this interface. So if the interface is not created, this is not going to give us a valid reference. So we're going to be trying to cast this to a third person character. So if we succeeded and got a proper character over here, then we're going to be going this way. If we did not, it's going to go along the failed. So we're going to be creating a little bit of a local variable. We can call it local target. And we can make this one of the type third person character. Like so. So if we manage to do this, get this target over here and cast it to, oh, we don't want to have an array here, we want to have a single variable. Then we want to set this local target to be whatever we had received over here. And then we want to say, use this ability on this target. So how we do that is like this. We're going to be needing an index of an ability here. So we're going to make an integer here. And this integer we can call ability index. And this will be represented by the 3 widgets that we created. So 0 would be the first ability, 1 would be the second ability, and 2 would be the third ability, because the index starts with 0, right? So we just need to create some functions now to actually allow us to execute an ability. So let's create that so we can actually make use of that here. So we'll create a new event. So we can go over here, we can remove the tick, we don't like the tick, and we'll create a custom event. We can call this server underscore use ability. We make sure that it's replicated and run on server and reliably. We create another custom event. We call this multi underscore use ability. We make sure it's replicated to multicast and reliably. So now the only thing the server call is going to do is call on multicast. So that's all that's going to be doing. The multicast, however, it's going to be taking our available abilities, and then it's going to be using the ability that we have marked. So we're going to be using we can do it like this. We can say we want to get a copy, which gives us an integer. We can drag this in here so we get it in the multi-use. We can rename this to ability index, which will expose it over here, and then we can drag it over here into the server. Just move it down to give us a little bit of space. We also want to have a target available for this. So we want to have that available in here as well. And we want to have that as a third person character, public reference. We can call this the intended target, like so, which exposes it up here and allows us to drag it up there as well. Now we're going to start actually doing some code over here. So we're going to get our owner again, and we're going to be casting this to a third person character. And then we're going to be hooking this up like so. Now we want to use an ability, and the ability that we want to use is this one, because we're sending in an index which ability to use. We get it from this array over here. So we're going to be saying attempt use, because we don't know if we can use it or not, and that's what the ability itself is going to keep track of, right? So we're going to call the attempt use, and the owner of this is going to be the owner that we've just cast over here, and the intended target is going to be the intended target that we got from over here. So now that's all good and fine, I think. That should also probably be everything here. So now if we go to the usability instead, now we can actually call on this function that we just created. So we can call on server usability now. And the target is going to be ours. The ability index that we're going to be using is the one that we get from the usability over here. Like so. And the intended target is going to be the local variable over here that we just set. So we can just drag this one in like so and have it like so. And that should be pretty much everything that we need for this component, I think. Not overly complicated, I hope. Anyway, let's move on. That is all for this episode. Hope to see you in the next one. Keep on learning. Take care.